Happy Friday.
So if you're joining us live, pop in the comments where you're joining us from. Give us a hello while we set up here. If you're catching a replay, you can put hashtag replay.
Can you see me now, Doris?
Oh, oh, there, I hear you. Now I see you. There you are.
All right.
Happy Friday, Black Friday.
Black Friday. Happy Black Friday. Everybody's going to be really happy today getting in on all the best sales and deals that there are to have.
Get your shopping done early, and then you can coast through to Christmas.
Yes, I learned that years ago, and I feel like men are the worst. I'm gonna stereotype males here as being the worst for getting things done on time. Usually we're way behind, but I definitely learned years ago how much better it is to get it done ahead. And now with my wife, it's like we get things done, like we start like 2 months out, and sometimes we even have things from throughout the year. So
Yeah. The only caution with that is you forget what you bought, and so then you go buy more, and then you're like, oh.
yeah, but it's always good to have some extra gifts on that you have, because you sometimes use them on other dates. So we always have extra stuff, but not like a ton of extra, but
Yeah.
we have a few here and there. So we're kind of always prepared for whatever's thrown at us, it seems.
That's the best way,
Yeah.
right? Because this time of year, I know we often hear it's the most wonderful time of the year, and I don't sing well, but it can also be a time of the year where it can bring on added stress, added anxious feelings. For some, it's a time where they're not happy. It brings on sadness depending on what they're going on through the year. It's also a time where you can fall off the rails with what your goals might be, specifically talking about weight management, for example. I read a statistic that, and I can probably attest to this, that you can gain between 7 and 10 pounds over the holiday season.
Yeah.
And some of the things that you might be doing during that time, if you're not disciplined and have the go-tos to get back on track, that trend might continue, right? It's like you spiral downward. And I would suggest that we've talked about this because we've been on here for some time. Like in the new year, we make our New Year's resolutions, and we know by February it's something like 80-something% of those goals fall off the rails. And so you might be one of those people who had goals because the holiday seasons, birthdays, things like that, have us sort of reevaluate things in our lives, maybe setting new intentions, new goals, but then it sort of falls by the wayside. And we might be at the point now where we're thinking, I'll just wait till January. Well, no, there are some things that you can do now, right? To set yourself up for either success through the holiday season so you don't fall off the rails, or even to get started. What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on that, really. In terms of the whole cycle that happens with people from year to year. Maybe I'll dig into that a little bit first, but I'll also point towards the last group call that you were actually on, where we came up with a ton of tips related to the holidays, right? And there's so many strategies to use, and I'll get into the cycle first, and then circle back to this. How's that sound?
Sure.
The cycle of the holiday season generally goes something like this. Like Doris was saying, usually people during the holidays end up being more stressed, right? You have more stress. There's more going on. No matter how much is normally going on in your life, generally during the holiday season, there's going to be more than that. So whatever you're used to dealing with, you're going to be dealing with more, which means that everybody's going to be feeling a little bit more stressed out, because it's going to push them out of what their normal comfort zone is in terms of how much you have to handle, how many tasks you need to complete, how much you need to think about, etc. So Stress is something that comes into the holidays, and that has a big impact on people. So you have more stress, right? You have a little bit less time, which is partially where that stress comes from. There's more on your mind, and there's that's a lot of it, because you have to, if you have events, you have to prepare for them. If you're going somewhere, you have to prepare for that. You might have to think about what you're wearing, what you're bringing, etc. And the other thing is, when you're really busy like that, you become less mindful. So if we're talking about, if we're going to talk about health or weight loss, let's say weight loss, because I think it's easier for the discussion to be centered around this part of the discussion to be centered around weight loss and trying to maintain your health overall. So we'll keep those two things in mind. So during the holidays, when all that business is happening, you're getting caught up in the energy of the holidays. You're doing all these different things you're not used to doing. So what happens? Routines get thrown off, right? You're less mindful. So when you have routines, a lot of times if you have a routine, you generally don't have to be super mindful about that. That's the great thing about creating routines, is that they automatically happen to some degree most of the time. During the holidays, though, those can go off track. And then there's the other things that you do that you have to be more conscious about, because maybe they're not part of routine, which requires mindfulness. But guess what? Your mindfulness is going to be thrown off during the holidays too. So there's going to be other things that fall to the wayside. And then really what happens is you get through that holiday season, you usually end up overeating. You don't do a lot of the things that you do for yourself to take care of your health. Hopefully that includes things like working out and eating right and taking time for yourself, getting outside in nature. Hopefully you do these self-care kind of practices. A lot of times those fall off during the holidays, and it's all really bad, because if you stop working out, your blood sugar control you're not going to be utilizing your food as well. You're not going to be feeling as good because of that, which is then going to have you be inclined to make worse decisions, whether you're aware of it or not. We usually end up making poorer decisions when we're not working out, because our body's not regulating as well, and we're having more cravings, and we have more stress, so we're having more cravings because the stress brings up our cortisol, which then brings up our blood sugar, right? So then we have all of the, right?
It's a vicious cycle, and one of the things that we talked about in our group call was, what are your non-negotiables? And for me, I have scheduled in the physical activity. Like
awesome.
Everything else has to go around that, because I know if the years have passed, that cycle repeating itself, you tend to put everything else first, and then it's harder to get back on track when you've done that. And then, things are going to come up. Yeah, for sure. You might be a bit off here or there, but those things that I know serve me for my self-care, they're in my phone. They're on my calendar. And so when someone says, "Ooh, you want to meet up for this?" Blah, 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 I look. Oh, no, I'm not available that time. I'm available this day at that time, or later in the day, or whatever the case may be, or whatever I have to get done. I'm either going to get it done earlier, or after that, or en route, or on my way back home. So you do have to be more mindful in planning those things, so that that you are taking care of yourself and managing. We know that physical activity is a very beneficial way to manage stress, those anxious feelings, uplifting your mood, giving you more energy, even though you're expending energy, all of those things, right?
Spending more energy over the holidays, but also creating more, exactly, right? Eating the right things, exercising. Guess what? You're exercising, you're going to have more emotional resilience, which means you're going to be handling stress better. You're going to be handling tough situations better, right? And that all snowballs in one direction as well, in the right direction, right? When you fall off of all those things, guess what? One situation goes bad, and then you end up bringing your energy down, your mood goes down, and then get thrown off a little bit more, and that can cycle the other way. So I think a couple things that you said right there, Doris, are really important. And I'll say within the Vitality Matrix method, the health and weight loss, the holistic health, let's say, and weight loss program that I coach people through, in that, like, planning is really important. Like, I think I consider the weekly growth and accountability worksheet. I feel like that right there is probably one of the most important practices for people to go through, that once a week planning. Or somebody who's, say, an entrepreneur, I'll get into deeper planning with them, where maybe they're using a master list and doing a little bit of planning each day, short periods of time, like usually the night before, getting ready for the next day, then the morning reviewing, kind of things like that. But that one weekly, at least having that one weekly time that usually takes, 30, probably more than 30 minutes, more like 45 minutes to an hour, generally is around the range, to reflect back, look forward, plan things out. That is so key. And in planning, like you're just saying, you have to get pretty specific with it. You have to really think it through. You have to figure out what works for you. So when we were talking about it on our last call, we're coming up with a lot of different tips, and you can look at different lists of tips out there, but we went through some that you see commonly, but we then came up with some that were ideas that came up that yourself and other people on the call were also coming up with, that end up being relevant to yourself. And that's a really big important part of this, right? And sometimes that's where coaching can be helpful, right? So on that note,
because it's not just cookie cutter, right? It's not like just do this X, Y, and Z and it's going to work. Well, that X, Y, and Z might not be your X, Y, and Z, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why I think, that's why I consider our weeklies, in the Vitality Matrix method, we do weekly calls, and I feel like those are so important, right? Because it's not like I have all the answers. It's like, as a coach, part of the philosophy is that you would have the answers, like Doris, if you're on the other side, right? And anybody else that's there, it's like, the answers for you better than I know the answers for you. I can help guide and direct in certain ways. There's certain things that I can do that will help overall, but at the same time, you have to also have the information coming in from the other side, and the solutions are individualized. So there's going to be some things that are general that are going to help, but when it really comes down to it, it's the specifics to the individual that matter. So we're talking about, the cycle that we go through in the holidays here. Planning is really important, and when you do that planning, it's not just surface level, like, this is what I'm going to do. You got to get deep. And when I do, what I'll say in my coaching experience is that the getting really deep in planning sessions, what I do with a couple people on a weekly basis, where we get really deep and we make we dig into everything that they're trying to implement, and we figure out exactly what we think the best plan is for that week. That's part of what that weekly growth and accountability sheet is about. I'm actually thinking about creating a second tier, deeper planning tool as well, because I realize is that planning part right there is the part that people generally don't do. And it's so important. It's not like you're going to stick to your perfect plan. You make what you think is going to work, and then some works, some doesn't. Sometimes you get everything done during the holidays. No, that's not going to happen, right? But when you create that plan, you're going to do a lot more of the things that you're intending to do than if you didn't, right? Planning is important. So talking about the holidays, one thing talking about planning is key. I want to finish this talk about the cycle of the holidays, because it's not much more than what I already mentioned before. So so we're going through the holidays, really busy.
It's like the cycle of the holidays can become the cycle of your life.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? And actually, it's interesting that you say that, because I was actually going to relate that cycle that you go through with the holidays and stress and being on track and being off track with this. I was going to liken it to glucose control or insulin control, because it's your body has to remain relatively stable in glucose, but it goes up and down with your foods. Insulin gradually increasing over time is more of an issue, but I was going to liken it to that. So if you eat let's say you ate a chocolate bar or something like that, or some of these, let's not say chocolate bar because it's the holiday season. People are going to be eating these lovely treats that are baked by their family members. And,
Home baked.
right?
Mm.
So you eat one of those things, and what happens is your blood sugar goes up like this, your insulin follows behind, right? Goes up, goes up. And then once your insulin catches up and does its job, it starts bringing it down, and it trails behind too, right? It trails behind. So when your blood sugar gets back to where it started out, while your insulin's still elevated and still pushes your blood sugar down even more then, right? So you start here, you go here, you're back here, and then you go lower than that, and you crash, and you have that ravenous hunger, right? So if we look at the cycle of the holidays with stress and being on track and everything else, so imagine you're going through the holidays. Let's just imagine that your health plan, you're following it pretty well up to that point. And that, but you don't have a system where new information and things coming in. You don't have like a planning system that helps you take care of that. You don't have a mindset that helps you stay out of that state of overwhelm, or tools that you know to utilize for yourself. You know, you just don't know. Maybe you don't know yourself enough to know exactly what you need as an individual, so that you can kind of stay semi-even keel through all the craziness, right? So what happens is, you know, you start falling off. You're stressed out. Your habits that you normally have, maybe some of those ones are falling off. Your routines are thrown off. You're not as mindful about what you're doing, so you're not as mindful about your food choices, and maybe not getting your exercising, but you're not even aware of it because there's just
tired. You're more exhausted,
yeah,
because you've added on layers to your daily life, right?
exactly. So there's so much going on. The end of your days, you're tired, so you have cravings because of that. So let's say you do what Doris was saying, and you put on that 7 to 10 pounds during the holidays, right? So put that on during the holidays. Then you get to the end of the holiday season, and then usually people have a lull between, say, Christmas and New Year's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of things that happen there, because it's the beginning of, you know, January 1st is the beginning of, it's a new day, it's a new week, it's a new month, it's a new year. It's big. There's a new year right there. And coming up to that, what naturally happens, just like when we come up to a birthday or another big event like that, is we generally reflect back and we look forward, hopefully look forward to, right? And during that time, this reflective period of time, well, guess what? If you're going to probably at some point feel a little bit of guilt because of overindulging during the holidays, right? Especially if you are trying to stay on track, and maybe you're struggling to stay on track, and that happens, and it happens to so many people. Like it happens to all of us to some degree, but right, we're all going to have a little bit more of the good stuff, unless you're, I don't know, unless you're the, you know, super strict, like you're getting ready for a fitness show in January, which is probably not even something a competitor would want to do. But otherwise, you know, we're all going to go backwards a little bit or maintain. Usually the goal through holiday seasons with my people is, you know, try to maintain, not to go too far back, you know, try not to lose all your habits. Do what Doris was mentioning. I know what it was. Non-negotiables. So Doris, you mentioned non-negotiables. It's like, you know what? And it's going to be different for everyone. So the one you mentioned for yourself, non-negotiable during the holidays, is working out. And to be honest, I won't tell somebody that working out is that, but through coaching sometimes, you know, that's usually the place that it ends up being. And sometimes it takes somebody a while to realize that. And I try to get people to that point where they realize that soon. I don't want to tell somebody this is the most important thing. I want them to realize it themselves, because when somebody realizes that, that's transformative. It's like, you know what? I know that I need to do this thing, because when I do this thing, then this, and this are all better. And that's the truth about working out.
When I don't do it, I see the ill effects of that, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, if you've never done it, you might not know, but once you've done things and you've seen progression, and it's often where because we're hardest on ourselves, you don't really realize how far you've come. Until maybe you don't do it again.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing, oh, now I'm feeling crappy. I have less energy. I'm not sleeping as well, because we know that physical activity supports slumping off some of the things that your body's repairing at night. Like, there's just so many things. And this week, the yoga instructor, she bumped it up a notch. So she's bumping it up to Christmas. And it's not like there's regular yoga, hot yoga. This is like high intensity interval training in a hot yoga room. And so she's bumping it up. I don't know where she gets her power from, but she does. And she said at the end of it, as she's pushing us all along, if you could see, like I see you, those of you who have been here, say, for the year, some of us have been there for years, but those of you who have been here for the year that this new program that she's implementing, damn, I'm so proud of you. Like, I can see, you know, how you've up leveled it and how you're doing more and how you're finishing off, you're not, you know, and she welcomes a child pose whenever, of course, but when she said that, she said, you think back to when you started, what you could do compared to what you can do now. And it's true. It is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's so helpful during challenging times too, to look at that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so good to, when you're acknowledging your wins along the way, it's good to, you know, and this is part of that reflection piece as well, that I recommend that we do on a weekly basis to keep yourself on track with whatever you're trying to do in life. But when you do that on a regular basis and you look back and you appreciate where you've come from and you actually think about that and you note that you've written it down and you have something to look back on, well, during a challenging time, it can feel like you are so far off track, and you know, you might have been off track for a week, but naturally, a lot of us get down on ourselves and you start having negative self-talk and everything else, and you forget about how far you've come, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can stay stuck in that place. But if you have all these notes and you look at where you've come and how far you've been building, let's say, and you look back on that, well, sometimes that's all you need. You have that realization. It's like, oh man, you know, I've actually been doing well for, like, you know, 6 months. I've been off track for 1 week. Right? And then you look back to the present, make your plan for the next week, and you can be right on track right away. And usually it's that planning. And that's why I'm going to go back to that and say this one more time. I think the planning weekly is so important, because anytime anybody has ever been off track, but haven't heard from somebody for 2 or 3 weeks, let's say, or something like that, and they have been off track, if I ask them, did they do the weekly? The answer is going to be no.
No.
Right? So kind of like the non-negotiable of working out, that's another thing that is a great realization to come to, is that the weekly planning should be non-negotiable. Why? Because everything really falls after that. So if you do your weekly planning based on your values, based on your goals, your working out's going to be part of that as well. So that is another great non-negotiable to have, especially during hard times, more challenging times, because that's when things are going to be changing more often. There's going to be more change. You're going to be more off track. You're going to learn new things about yourself if you do that. If you don't, then you'll just probably stay off track.
And that for me, the big thing is the meal planning, because you get so busy, right? You're working, then you're shopping, or you're visiting, or whatever the case may be, and then you come home and you're starving, and maybe there isn't anything there, or you're going to go through the drive-through, or whatever. So I've done like huge batch cooking of like chilies, soups, you know, even like chicken breasts, oven roasted chicken breasts, and I portioned it, wrapped it separate. Not that we don't cook throughout the week, but you have that grab and go, that you know how you cooked it, what you put in it, how it's going to serve you better than going through a drive-through.
Oh,
right?
That Richard had said hello. I'm gonna turn up some light in this room here. It seems the sun has behind the clouds. Here we go.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for joining us. I see a few people here, so that's great. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. That would be awesome. Tell us where you're joining us from.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doris.
Sorry, one of the things you said was like the writing it down, and that I think is really key, because you forget. But when you look back at what you journaled and how you maybe felt before you started, or during your journey, you forget. But when you write it down and go back, then you're like, wow, I have come a long ways, right?
Yeah.
You sent me something quite detailed to gain clarity, and I found a little something that because during the holidays we might be busier and people don't want to take the time, but I found a little thing called a release technique, which you can go through like really quickly if you want. You writing it down, of course, would be great, but just some key questions. So what is most causing stress right now, whatever that might be for the person? What can I control? Because we know if we focus on the things that we can't control, that's insanity, right? You've got to learn how to let go of the things that you have no control over.
You mean like the news, Dora?
What's that?
I'm like, you mean like the news?
That for one. I rarely watch.
Right?
I was at a doctor's appointment with my spouse, and they had the TV going, and I'm like, this is why I don't turn it on. I live in a bubble with my head in the sand, perhaps, but I know there's certain things like that I can't control.
And it's a side note. I don't want to. I'll send it back to you after this. But the news really, you'll get drawn into some things that are in the news, which are outside of your control, that are not in your life. So in essence, if you're drawn into anything in the world that you can't control like that, then you are taking away your own control. You're foregoing that control for these and getting pulled into these topics, like these political things that are going on. People get so involved in this, and they're not actually doing anything in their own life to develop themselves personally or move forward towards their goals, right?
And yet there are others who, they might see something and it becomes their passion, and they become advocates, and they do what they do, and they create change in the world. Great. But that's not the average Joe, right?
Very few, right?
Yeah. So then, like, 4 more questions, like, what outcome would I like to have, right? So keeping that vision, that end goal in mind. That is someone else. Hi. And then what we just said basically is, what can I let go of that is not serving me?
Mm-hmm.
And again, because I'm about service, as you are, who can I serve? So what do I have that I can offer someone else to serve and support? And also, if you're struggling during these times, where can I get support? Because that's super important too. Like, during these times, if you're maybe already struggling and you might need a little extra help, knowing where to reach for that support.
That's great. Doris, do you mind just listing the questions off?
Yes.
So,
yeah, what is most causing stress right now? What can I control? What outcome would I like to have? What can I let go of that is not serving me? Where can I get support? Who can I serve?
Awesome. And those questions, could we put those in comments when we do put this online? Because we will put this online at some point.
Yeah.
So we'll add that there. Oh no.
I might just post this one unedited and add those questions in, just because I think this time of year, I think I've had, and I know you have had, several people reaching out who are saying, I need help. They don't know where to start. Perhaps even throughout the year, but even now, with the holiday season coming, someone is asking to repeat. Slow down. Okay. So, what is most causing stress right now? So you have to be able to identify that. You got to look to yourself and understand what is causing me stress right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at those things, you can ask yourself, what can I control? So if you can't control it, if it's something happening outside of you and in the world, but you're becoming consumed by it, but unable to change it, then that's going to expend energy and cause more stress for you. So you need to learn to, like, if I have something that's happening, do I have the ability to control it? Meaning not necessarily control it, but can I take action to change that thing? And if the answer is yes, then do it. But if the answer is no, and you continue to sort of, focus on that thing that's happening that you can't change, then it's going to create more stress and anxious feelings and overwhelm and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you can act on it, do something, then do it. But if you can't, you can feel and understand and be empathetic and all of those things. But if you can't do something to change it, then you have to learn to acknowledge it, accept it, or whatever, and set it aside.
Mm-hmm.
What outcome would I like to have? So thinking about, how you would like to handle things, what your goals are, where your end in mind is.
What your intention is.
Yes, and what you can do today. What can I do now? Right? What can I do in the future? What can I do tomorrow? That planning. And what can I let go of that is not serving me? We sometimes get caught up. I will use this example. We sometimes get caught up in other people's drama. Somehow there are people out there in the world that pull you in. You can't do anything about their situation, but somehow they pull you in, and it's draining, emotionally draining. And part of that is because, it's out of your control. You can't do anything about it, but somehow you get sucked into that whole, I call it drama, and maybe that's not the right word, but it's not serving you. It's draining you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're feeling like you're beyond your normal overwhelm and, it's lasting for a longer period of time, you're not able to function, then you need to ask yourself, where can I get support? Where can I get help? And this one is last, but really it's almost how I lead my life, is who can I serve? So what can I do to support in another fashion? I mean, it could be as simple as in our community now, there are many homeless people living in tents and on the streets. It's getting cold. They need blankets, hats, coats. You know what I mean? So clear your closet out. Go drop it off to a center that's going to serve that community. That's just like one example. Adam, you serve every day in your capacity as a coach, helping people along their health journey. I serve people as well with their physical, emotional, mental well-being, using natural alternatives. So whatever that thing is that lights you up, go do that instead of getting sucked into something that you don't have the tools, the skills, the know-how, the knowledge to be able to help. Yeah, you could figure it out and find out for sure. But look to what's inside of you and how you can serve someone else to support them.
I have something to add to your questions, actually, Doris.
Yep.
And it would go right on the end, maybe the second last one. What can you do to serve others? What can I do better to serve myself?
Well, yes. Yeah.
It kind of gets covered in the other questions, but I think that's a really important one because you can't give what you don't have. So you have to take care of yourself first. It's not a selfish thing to do.
What can I control? That part you can control, right?
Exactly.
And you can't pour from an empty cup, right? If your cup is empty, if you're not, dealing with all these things, yeah, for sure. You can't serve someone else if you're not serving yourself first. And I think a lot of people, and especially moms, I think men are underserved here too, because they're taught to suck it up, deal with it, stress, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But moms too, especially, it's almost like you're shamed and guilted if you take time for you.
Yeah.
But self-care is not selfish. Whatever that is for you, like whether it's going to the gym, whether it's like I need to go for a walk, I need 10 minutes just, for a nice hot bath. Whatever that is for you, then take the time to do it.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that on which you're talking about right now is something that's really important to go through, especially with mothers. And it's a really it's a little mindset thing that's so important. It's like on one end you could think take care of yourself is selfish, but if you realize that taking care of yourself allows you to serve the other people in your life, and usually family's right at the top when you're a mother, right? When you realize that taking care of yourself helps serve your children, helps serve your family, and if career is around the top for you, then it's helps serve your career, and you really dig into that, well, guess what? You're going to create motivation to take those actions that you've been trying, maybe you've been struggling with. I'm going to answer a question that I saw up there. Where can you find support? So I'd say the first thing is, for support, depends on what support you're looking for, but I'll say you want to get support from somebody that you trust, somebody that you feel good with, that you can express yourself freely with. It could be, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, but it definitely is somebody that that you completely trust, that you feel safe with, so that you can get the things out that you need to get out. Because somebody was asking, I think it was Angelic, who was asking about where to find support. So what I'll say, because I don't think you're here, I don't know if you're here for any of our other talks and today when we might have been introducing some things, but personally, I run a program called the Vitality Matrix Method. It's a health and weight loss program. It's specialized in weight loss, but really, when it comes down to it, it's about holistic health, and everything that we're talking about here and more are all things that I have within that program. So generally, I'm helping people with weight loss, but sometimes I'm helping people gain muscle, right? Because the difference between those two things and the actions that you have to take, they're not a lot different. Just that, when you're trying to build muscle, then the exercise program, that part of it, the progressive overload and the volume and that kind of stuff is more important. And when you're trying to lose weight, that doesn't need to be as much of a stress. You don't need to get as technical there. But the only thing that really changes is your intake of food for the most part. So that program is a place where if that's what you're looking for, that's where you get that support. And in that program, the kind of support that's offered there is group coaching on a weekly basis, one-on-one coaching when needed. Any program that doesn't offer one-on-one coaching, that's when needed, at least. Or if somebody's high needs, sometimes I do weekly coaching with people who are coming in that need that weekly coaching. That support part is so important. Generally, you won't need a system. The weekly growth and accountability work that I have people do, that's really important. But the support is so important because we're humans, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is human processes, right? Mindset, getting onto the internal side. These things are all really important to being able to be consistent and get the results you want, to learn how to feel better, to move better, to just live better, be more fulfilled, etc. Those things are very much a human process, and it requires that kind of support. So it all depends on the type of support you're looking for. So that's some of the support that I offer. Like I said, oftentimes, if you can have a trusted friend, depending on what you're looking for, that could be the place to go for support. You just have to make sure that that's a person you feel really safe with, and they're like a good person to reflect back on with whatever you're talking about, or just a listening ear, right? Doris, would you like to share anything about support?
Yeah, so as you know, similar to Adam, we use natural alternatives to support our physical, emotional, mental well-being. Just that we're talking about stress, calming your mind and your nerves. We actually have a system called adaptive, because let's face it, in life you have to be able to adapt. Super easy system, it's called the calming blend. You can take the essential oil, put a drop in your hand, breathe it in, rub it on the back of your neck, your temples. I like to put it in my hair. Then I've got my own personal diffuser walking around with me, helping me to deal with stressful situations. It comes in a touch as well, or you can make your own. There's also a dietary supplement with GABA and other ahi flower, sclerotium, essential oils like lavender, coriander, wild orange, fennel. All these things help to calm you, ground you, help you focus, like that scatter mind, especially during times of overwhelm. You're able to focus and get things done. So that's a system, that's one thing you can add to what you're doing, along with physical activity, which Adam could certainly support you with, finding that thing that works for you. Meditation is another one. I do have a free program where you can get this information, and it has links to meditation, and you can listen in for different things to help you there, whether it's a morning meditation, a waking and arising, feeling confidence and belief, a deep body scan, gratitude, enhancing those feelings of gratitude, all of those things that can help support you through this. So whatever works for you. I mean, meditation could be prayer, right? Meditation could be just thinking about what you're grateful for. There's so much out there, and it is a matter of finding out what works for you.
Doris, I have a
Finding
question for you.
it could be just a walk in, a trail that has trees, and just getting out in nature. It's whatever works for you, but if you're needing support to figure that out, then we have the tools and resources to help you. And again, a community, if you're looking for natural alternatives, reducing the toxic load, all of those things. Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff, Doris. So I have a question for you, and this is based on one of the questions in the comments. Would you say that our group calls, or little community that we have there, would you feel like you feel safe in that community?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I'm saying that, yeah, because it is so key. And that's probably one of the most important aspects of such communities, is feeling that safety,
Yeah.
and having that trust that you're not going to be judged, etc.
And we're not alone. You know what? If you're feeling a certain way, chances are other people are too. And it's a matter of finding a community that can support and work through those things so that you don't have to continue to feel that way.
Yeah.
You reach your goals, whatever it might be, whether it's, weight loss and management, whether it's supporting your emotional, mental well-being, and the two go hand in hand.
So Angelic Truth, I'm not sure your actual name, but if you don't find that there is anybody that is around you that could support and that you trust, then I'd recommend reaching out to one of us. If you feel like you're comfortable hearing what we have to say and you're resonating with what we're saying today, then feel free to reach out to one of us to talk about whatever you need to talk about, ask whatever questions you have. We're here to help. I've been online helping people for a long time. There's a couple of groups that I just randomly pop into here and there just to help those communities out. And there's nothing I get back from these ones, so I just get in there and help in those places as well. So yeah, if you don't have anybody around you,
where would they reach out to you? I mean, here I am on Insta as myself, Doris Viestakopoulos. I'm on Facebook as well. You can look up Earth to Bottle if it's easier to remember than my name. But for yourself, Adam, where would one reach out to you?
I do have a website. It's vitalhealthmatrix.ca, but that's not the best place to reach out to me. If you go to vitalhealthmatrix.ca, you can link into my Instagram, which is Adam G. Arbour, A-R-B-O-U-R. If you reach out to me there, I'll definitely get back. That's the main platform that I center around. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message there. I'll be more than willing to help. Or
send it along to me. I can send Adam's link to you as well. Whatever works, right? I have to hop off because I have another appointment, but I think this is so important that maybe we will continue next Friday.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a
plan? The only thing I'll say right now before we jump off, I don't know if you want to share any of this too, because it's Black Friday, I am offering Black Friday deals as well to anybody who's going to hear this. I'm doing 25% off my program plus adding a free month to it. So that's the Black Friday deal we have going on this year. I generally extend it till Monday because Black Friday is just one day, and I think it's crazy to try to get all that done on one day. And a lot of times people are busy this time of year, and it's Black Friday, so everybody's trying to find these sales. So that deal I generally extend to Monday. But I'm also thinking, Doris, I think I'm going to jump on it live after we're done, and I'm going to just keep going for a little bit. So if anybody that's here wants to jump on that live, I'm going to go live right after this one's over, and I'm just going to talk more about getting results, maybe some considerations related to holidays, but more about getting results and what it takes. There's a lot of dynamics to it, and I think that the only way you can create consistent, repeatable results is by having a very comprehensive system that helps humans, that helps people work through our own barriers. Because if you don't have that aspect there, you don't look into mindset and values and have the type of support that you need, then when you have a challenging time, often what happens is you fall off and it's very hard to recover a lot of the time. So I'm going to jump on and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say before jumping off, Doris?
Yeah, I'll be putting up some stuff as well. We've got like 25% off. You get one-to-one support here in using natural alternatives and reducing the toxic load within your home. Another supportive community in that regard, answering any questions for your specific concerns, and how we can bump up, if you're wanting to make changes, how we can bump that up and have that happen faster with better results. Yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff, Doris. Nice being here with you today.
Okay. Thanks for joining us all. See you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.